All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our JBLM Industry Day discussion. We're going to be talking about the source of salt that's out right now called the General Maintenance, Repair, and Minor Construction Work MATOC. That's at JBLM's campus. We are excited to have a member of the JBLM MIC here to talk a little bit about to give more in-depth information. We're glad that you're joining us today. In addition to myself as a member of Apex Accelerator, I have a few co-workers that are also on board here. Marnie Tyson, who is one of our longstanding counselors and our program manager that keeps us afloat. We also have some other folks from my staff that will be joining in. Tori is here. Good to see you, Tori. Grady is here as well. So we have several Apexers on the line, and they may be able to assist. But our goal is to try and go through this information, share as much as possible. And we are recording this session so that for those who do not make it, we will be able to hopefully make this available later for those who may miss it. But it's going to be good information. So with that in mind, let me move forward. So for those of you who may or may not know, our PTECs are now Apex Accelerators. We are one and the same, but some people are still getting adjusted to our brand change, our name change. We are partially funded through DOD, and some of the transition from that has led to our name change, but our services remain the same. We are loyal to you all as clients. We enjoy working with you, and our mission has stayed the same as well in terms of working with small businesses. So we just want to make sure that you know, if you're talking to Apex or PTAC, you're talking to one and the same. And again, just a quick summary of our services. We're here to help you find ways to do business with federal, state, or local governments. We're here to help you find opportunities similar to what we're doing here today. We can help with interpreting solicitations and different regulations, certifications, registrations. Again, there are a lot of services that our one-on-one counseling provides. And the benefit to that is being able to find out what you need as a business. Every business is at a different stage. So sometimes people need a little more hand-holding with certain things. Other times people may be a little more further in line because they've been doing this. We've got counselors literally located throughout the state that assist with one-on-one. We do different matchmaking, things of that nature. And here's just a quick snapshot of the area that we cover throughout the state. And as you can see, we're kind of broken into sub-centers. So for those of you who are looking at Pierce, which is obviously JBLM is in Pierce County, we're in 6, but we also have counselors literally throughout the state that are here to help you. So no matter where you're calling in from or joining us from, should you decide to take advantage of our services, we have one-on-one counselors that we can assign you with to work with, but we share information. We are a team. And it's one of the advantages to working with Washington Apex is that we do serve as a team, and we work together to work with whoever we need to work with to help you with your needs. So that's the little shout out about us. So moving forward. So our agenda today is very simple. Obviously, I've done some introductions to some of our staff already. We're going to get ready to jump into the source of salt presentation overview that's going to be brought to you by Major Andre Gatlin. For those of you who were able to join us last week at our Meet the Agency, some of you have already gotten a preview to him. For those of you who are not there, you're in for a real treat. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he's going to give some very good information today. And then we're going to go into question and answers based on, after he goes through his presentation, we'll open it up. And then we're going to do what we call an attendee roll call. We realize that there are many of you that may be looking to suit different needs. You may have different expertise. We're going to try to give an opportunity to at least introduce yourselves and assist with meeting each other, because some of you may be prime, some of you may be subs. This could be a great opportunity to team depending on what you hear and what's required. So with that in mind, we are going to move into the actual discussion. And so I'm going to switch the presentation over. And again, I introduce you to Major Andre Gatlin from the MIC at JBLM. Andre, let me go ahead and switch on over. And
all right, awesome.
Give me 1 second to make that switch over. Let's see. In the show. I think I have to stop the share and then I have to reshare. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Can you all see that handsome war fighter on the front?
Yep, we can see it. We can see it. And no, not myself, nor related to me. Just a awesome warfighter that you guys all see. So good morning, good afternoon. My name is Major Andre Gatlin. I'm currently the contract specialist for a requirement emergent that's coming for us. So with that, can you go to the next slide? So through this, what I try to do is try to take pieces of the actual sources sought, some of the information that we are going to be required from you all to have a better understanding of what our marketplace looks like, as well as kind of do a little bit more of showing you some slides that we actually talk to people once an award is actually posted, right? So you're going to see a lot of information if you are selected of the things that we go through, some of the confirmations as far as all of our vendors have a clear understanding. So if you are interested in actually sending a proposal, you will know all the little details that would be required of you going forward with this particular action. So don't mind the post-award conference things, right? Because again, this was based off of another MATOC that we had before. In our last conversation, I wanted to kind of pull some of the curtains as far as government contracting away from some people who may have never actually done government contracting, and in particular with the Army. So again, curtain is going to be open. Hopefully you guys all enjoy. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can within the time permitted. I do have to leave at 12 o'clock, so I'm going to do my best to get through all these slides. Bear with me. If for some reason I'm talking too fast, does someone just chime in and I'll slow down? If not, we should be able to look at this video at another time. All right. The information will be posted, so it may not be in a PowerPoint presentation, but all the information here today will be posted, and then hopefully we can also have a video posted as well. So team, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about the actual contract. We're going to look at an overview for that. We're going to talk about registering with the federal government because that's so important. If you are not registered in SAM.gov, unfortunately, we just can't do business. That is a hard stop. I'm then going to show you the sources sought and bring out some key information that is required and tell you why it's required. Then I'm going to tell you our thoughts on the contract. So in our phase of this requirement, it is not solid. It is not set. We are still working on it. So the information I'm going to provide you is not the set final thing. It's just kind of give you a preview as far as what we are thinking. So with that information, definitely in your sources sought, you can provide additional information. And then at a future time, we may issue a RFI, a request for information to industry, where we will have more details as far as the actual requirement. We may have the actual statement of work draft. We may have additional attachments so that you all can review it and provide feedback as we're refining our actual requirement. So again, our thoughts about the contract. There's quite a few slides about it. Again, I am going to peel back what it's like working with the federal government, in particular with the Army. So I understand that some people are new to it. So I'm going to be explaining things as if everyone is new to ensure that everyone's on the same playing field. And then we'll do questions. So can we go to the next slide? All right. So what's going to happen is we are going to issue an IDIQ contract. At the very top, you can see how we name our contract numbers. So the first part is our actual office number. Then it goes by the fiscal year. D means that it's an IDIQ contract. And then based off the numbers is what you will be assigned. You will see that there's multiple X's with slashes. So with this contract, as the contract title implies, we are looking to award multiple contracts to multiple vendors out there. The award start date, not determined at this time. We are hoping to get it awarded in fiscal year 24. As far as the total amount is going to be 25 million cumulative. All right. So just because you won an award doesn't mean you're going to get all 25 million, nor does it mean that you're going to get 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. At this time, we're looking at a minimum guarantee of $5,000. So whether you are whether you win a proposal or not, you'll be guaranteed 5 million if you're part of our suite. And then, of course, we don't want that to be the case. We want everyone to win a proposal that is part of the suite so that multiple projects go in. So I said suite. Let me go ahead and clarify what that means. So instead of doing individual invitation for bids for a lot of our projects, right? Because JBLM, there's quite a things that need to be fixed. So instead of doing those multiple times, a method that we would like to do is to create a smaller vendor pool, where then within that vendor pool, we have a guarantee of these are the types of work that you will do. We will send out proposals to that vendor pool, and then they will work on that project. Now, that doesn't mean we don't cease with our invitation for bids. We still continuously do them, but this is just another method in our toolbox that we are allowed to use. And that is what we're trying to do going forward. All right. Invoicing will be by task order, right? So by project, and it will be progress payments. Going to the next slide. All right. So register with the federal government. Register on SAM.gov, SAM.gov, SAM.gov. So you can see the website. I am not a small business, nor have I registered as a business owner on SAM.gov. However, I am registered on SAM.gov, but just in a different way. So with it, register, you'll get your UEI, you'll get your cage code. All right. The NAICS code will show you what we are thinking about proposing. Please note that it is not final as of yet, so it may change, right? It's important that if you are a small business that you register through all the means to show that you are a small business. So please do so. And then, of course, looking at that last bullet point, contract terminology. If you haven't watched many of the videos of government contracting, in particular the Federal Acquisition Regulation, I highly recommend it. That is our Bible. That's the thing that we must follow, and we will follow. All right. So going to the next slide. All right, so here it is. Here's the real life, real world source to SOT screenshot from my government computer here to this PowerPoint slide. All right, so I'm going to talk some of the details. I apologize if I read some of the information here on the slide, but I'm going to try to give you some information and then tell you the takeaway. So the first bullet up there, this is not a request for proposal, right? So this is not us soliciting. This is the federal government having an understanding of what the marketplace looks like to see who can do the actual job that we're thinking about. As we continue in the future, which you see in the next bullet point, we may ask additional questions in order to refine what our requirement is and to ensure that we're meeting industry standards. So the federal government does things one way, the private sector does things another way. If we're going to procure private sector items, we need to ensure we're talking your lingo. Now, at the same time, there's going to be some of our language that you need to incorporate, which you'll see a little bit further down. But ultimately, for you all, I would say to understand our language, understand the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. So as far as the NAICS that we're planning on going is 236220 that you see there. So if you are registered underneath that NAICS, I definitely recommend you send in your capability brief or just a response to our source to SOT. Now, here's the huge disclaimer about all of this, all right? The federal government has certain social economical policies that they enact, right? There are a lot of categories underneath small businesses. whether it's women-owned businesses, service disabled veteran-owned businesses, and so forth. So being part of the federal government, we, JBLM, have a certain amount of those categories we must go to, right? Whether it's 10%, 12%, 30%. Now, based off your response and the particular category that you are registered underneath, we may come and we may limit who we're soliciting to based off of these social economic categories. So when you do provide your information, please provide your social economic category that you're registered underneath, so that we know what it looks like, and then we can better refine to either isolate to one of those or to make it 100% small business. All right. I will say right now we are looking at 100% small business, but once we get all the responses, that may change. All right. The work is going to be performed at JBLM proper. We are not looking to do this at Yakima at this time. But again, things may change. Going on to our next slide, we're going to look at a little bit more details as far as the sources sought. All right. So this right here is the information that we want from you all. All right. So we are looking in that first tab A to ensure you can do business with us. So though it's awesome that we receive a lot of responses, if we receive a lot of responses and no one is registered to do business with us, we know we have a lot of work to do, or we know that we need to delay our process to allow everyone to have time to actually register to do business with us. Fun fact, it takes quite a while to register in SAM.gov. It is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So it does take 2 to 3 months in order to do that. Another fun fact, we are not looking to solicit today or this month. So if you are not registered, you do have time to get registered in SAM.gov. All right. I spoke about the small business status. Please, if you fall underneath one of these categories, please input it. Please let us know, because overall, when we decide our strategy as far as what of those categories we're going to go to, or if we're going to keep it 100% small business, we need to know the amounts. And I prefer to hear from people who are interested than using some of my other data points that doesn't tell me whether people really are interested or not. All right. So we are dealing with constructions. So we are looking for bonding capabilities. So for your own business practices, please have that ability. At this time, I don't know if we're going to bond per task order or we're going to request, let's say, $1 million bond. And then as you do your projects, we'll just keep track of how far that bond has gone to. All right. So for your NAICS, right, we have what we think we're going with, but it may not be the correct one, right? So go ahead and when you state your primary NAICS, you can give us a recommendation as far as based off this requirement, we think it should be X, Y, and Z. All right. So let us know the number of projects that you have. Again, this will help with our strategies, how we're going to solicit. If we find that a whole bunch of people from all the categories have plenty of experience, we may want to open it up to everybody, 100% small business, not limiting to any particular social economic standard because there's such a wide variety. And as I said before, we are looking to get 5 vendors within this contract. Now, this is a good stopping point to tell you about our onboarding, offboarding that we are thinking about for this. So what does that mean? So we plan to have initially 5 vendors that we onboard. That is part of our suite. If for some reason one of the vendors decides they want to leave the suite, or if they're just not working with the group, right? They're not working with the federal government, we then plan to offboard them. And then whoever would have been next in line, we would invite them to be part of the suite and onboard them onto it. So just because at the very end, if, for example, you don't win a contract, it's not the end, all right? We are looking to ensure that we maintain plenty of competition for this requirement. All right, can we go to the next slide? All right. So we're now going to go into the post-award conference phase, right? So again, this is some of that behind the curtain actions that we actually do. This is the way that we ensure that there's shared information, shared knowledge, and that if there's any minor issues, we address it. So I'm going to give it to you up front so you can understand how we talk, how we think, what are the expectations, so that you can go ahead and do what you need within your business if you're interested in competing for this requirement. So there's three critical personnel that you need to know about when it comes to government. First is the contracting officer. They are the only ones who has authority to change anything in the contract. That is where all things are held, is your contracting officer. Your contracting specialist is your government representative with delegated authority from the KO. Basically, what that means, they are the workhorse. They are the ones putting everything together. They're doing most of the primary communication. They are giving recommendations to the contracting officer, and they are the voice of the contracting officer. They know when to send you an email and to state what to do and not to do, and they know when to tell the contracting officer to tell you all what to do, not to do. But you would expect majority of your conversations to go through the contract specialist. You will expect a lot of the RFIs, and ultimately, when the award is actually awarded, you will expect the contract specialist to email you that award signed by the contracting officer. Now, the person you're going to have the most interaction with is the contracting officer representative. That is the individual designated by the contracting officer that is allowed to represent the contracting officer, right? That core is the one that ensures that the contract in place, that all parties are being compliant to it, and if non-compliance is occurring, they're the ones that document it, report it, and then the contracting officer will further on go into details so that we can resolve any issues at the lowest level. Which, yes, the government likes to resolve things at the lowest level. We are okay with phone calls to discuss things in order to fix issues. If not, there is a process that we go through. Your excellent resource of how that process goes is the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which I think you're finding a common thing of the FAR. All right. Your core, again, daily interactions, most likely. Reports are sent to your core. Base access is your core. A lot of things are your core, but your core is not the contracting officer. So your core cannot say, yes, I will award you this task order. That would ultimately come from the contracting officer. And I think we're going to go into details as far as some of those mistakes that we could have going in the future. Going to the next slide. All right. So, yep. This is exactly what I said. I'm going to read this verbatim so I just don't miss a beat here. So the KO is the only person authorized to approve changes or modify any of the requirements under this contract, and notwithstanding anything contained elsewhere in this contract, the said authority remains solely with the KO. In the event the contractor or contractor employee affects any change at the direction of any person other than the KO, the change will be considered to have been without authority and no adjustments will be made in the contract price under the changes clause or any other clause to cover any increase in cost incurred as a result thereof. So what does that mean? That means you walk over, we have a project, let's say to repair a roof, and you go to the core and say, hey, I have some better shingles than what was proposed. You want me to bring the better shingles? And the core goes, yeah, absolutely. Better is better, right? Well, the better shingle costs you an extra $10,000. You put it, and at the end, you go, all right, well, we put it up there. That's going to be $10,000 more. I am sorry on behalf of the federal government, but that is a cost that you have absorbed yourself, because the only one who can modify or change would be the contracting officer. And the way that we would do that change, right, is we would do a modification. It would be an official paperwork, an SF-30, that says, yes, we are good with this change order. All right. So again, your contracting officer is the one who gets to say yes or no. Your core is just to ensure that there's compliance. Non-compliance, And if they have any micro technical changes they can do, it will be specified in their nomination letter, which will be sent to you all once the contract is awarded. Going on to the next slide. All right. So MIC JBLM will be in control of all the contracts, which is good because sometimes there's a contracting office from one side of the country that's dealing with other things going on. So we're fairly responsive with our team, and all of our cores, and in particular, the cores that will be working on these projects are very responsive. Going on to our next slide. All right, so I talked about the core quite a bit, right? So again, going into what the core is authorized to do, right? They are authorized to verify, monitor contractors' performance, discuss concerns regarding the specification, maintain liaison and direct communication with the contractor, process progress reports, process submittals. They are not empowered contractual changes. Contractual matters concerning potential changes to contract price, scope of work, and invoices should be forwarded to contract specialist and the contracting officer. So this is what we're generally thinking right now. So again, I told you this is kind of behind the curtain stuff. Every single MATOC will be different as far as what we allow the core to do and not to do. All right, next slide. So there's two types of modifications that we'll work with you all with. A bilateral modification is when we have a change to one of the Holy Trinity, cost, schedule, performance. So performance is the actual terms and conditions, or excuse me, performance would be part like of the statement of work. Of course, the period of performance is as far as the schedule. And then if we change significant terms and conditions that are outside of the mandatory FAR clauses, right, that requires an actual change. Unilateral changes are things that we are allowed to execute by ourselves. So for example, usually it's administrative. So an administrative change may be we need to change who the pay office is because a mistake happened or pay offices got mixed up. As I said before, FAR clauses. So at times, maybe a FAR clause was not inputted. So we would add in that FAR clause as per the Christian doctrine. And then with this contract, if we were to change it from a 5-year ordering period, like we're thinking, to one with a base plus 4 options, if we have this FAR clause that you see here, 52.2179, we would then be allowed to unilaterally extend the contract as long as we meet all the terms and conditions within that clause. Going on to the next slide. So as you can see here, this is kind of giving a little bit more insights as far as what the task orders will actually look like. I will go ahead and go to the next slide, and then you guys can read this once we post out. All right, so pricing, right? You got to follow the Davis-Bacon wage rates as well as service wage rates for anything that is service like related. Do note, we will come out on site to inspect and ask your employees what they are being paid and document it. So ensure that you're doing that. That is incredibly important, and that is a requirement that we have to do as the government when we go out there. All right, bonds, right? Unfortunately, I don't have experience getting bonds. As far as the private sector, I can receive them and look at all of them. I do know they require a little bit of work. So if you need to brush up on what is required for bonding, please do so. Next slide. Okay, so how does the process work, right? You got awarded one of the contracts. You're part of the suite. You're part of the club. What is going to happen? So what is going to happen is we, the contracting office, is going to receive a requirement from our public works, a project. From there, we're going to send a request for task order proposal, or as we like to say, RTOP, right? The amount of acronyms we Army people is, we just love them, all right? So we are going to get the statement of work, all attachments, the bid schedule, and the price proposal breakdown, and we're going to submit that with additional instructions in the RTOP to everyone in the suite. We will give a date as far as when the site survey will be. We will give a date as far as when we will not receive any more questions, and we will give a date on when your proposals are due. All those dates you must follow. You may request to change the date. If we do, we will send an amendment to everyone. Now, during the RTOP process, if there are questions, it's treated the same as if any other type of solicitation. We'll get all the questions, we will answer them, and we will provide all the questions and answers to everyone in the suite to ensure that everything is being fair. Going to the next slide. All right. So here you can see that the KO may give a verbal notice to proceed. That's what the NTP is. So in this requirement, we are going to specify at times that if we need to expedite a project, that you are available. So please do know that in your staff, the way that it's structured, if it's not structured to be able to respond within 24 hours with someone on site, then there's something that you may need to do or change, right? Whether it's hiring someone, changing where office locations are, joint ventures together, or getting additional small businesses and the like, all right? But we 100% would prefer that whoever's your project manager in QA is close, right? And going in the future, that may be one of the evaluation criteria that we go for. That's one of those things where like I stomp my boot on the ground, right? So we are looking for responsiveness for all these different kind of projects. All right, warranty work, 1 year for that. And then as far as, next slide. All right, so liquidated damages may be part of some of the task orders. So what we are thinking about right now is in the base contract, letting everyone know what the liquidated damage would be. This right here is an example of liquidated damage. So here you see is $362.50 if it was to pass. Now, not all the task orders will have liquidated damage, but we, the government, want to reserve the right that if there is a project that is time sensitive, that we can input that into our RTOP. Beforehand, you guys all know that it could happen, right? And then we move forward from there. But there's not going to be any issues because everyone who's part of our suite are going to do everything in a timely fashion. All right, next slide. All right, so you can see we prefer 8-hour days, 7:30 to 4, Monday through Friday. Team, we don't like people working on government holidays, so plan for that, right? And then if we are working outside of those normal hours, that is going to require a KO approval. Again, these are all things we're thinking. This may not be the final what happens, but again, this is what we're thinking. Next slide. All right, so this is the invoicing process. I will definitely let you guys go back, read over it. So as you see, SF 1413 is submitted. We'll go through our approval process. The form of payment we'll go through is ETF, electronically transferred funds via WAF, which is the wide area workflow. See, I told you the acronyms, they're special. Next slide. All right. So you can see some of the things that we are looking for prior to payment. Do note that we are going to do a final walkthrough for our projects before we do get that final payment. And then if claims is required, of course, it's y'all's right to submit your claim of what need be. But I do know with our QA team that we have, everything fairly stays on point with all of our projects and requirements. Going on to the next slide. Okay. So invoicing is going to be by the terms and conditions of the contract. So you'll see that information out in the solicitation. And if we do need to do a change, we will do it when we send out our RTOP for that particular project. Team, if you're not registered in WAF, highly recommend you do that. That is how you're going to get your money from the federal government. So please, SAM.gov to work with the federal government. Wide area workflow, which is located in the Pi module, and you go to the link that was just posted. Get access to it. Please look at the training video so you understand how to properly invoice. If you invoice improperly, it will get kicked back. The government is not fast in improving things. So know if it does get kicked back, it is going to take time for us to go back through the approval process. It will go through your core to validate. It will then do some systems check. It will then go to an agency that's called DFAS. And once it hits their queue, they have up to 30 days to pay you all, which I actually think for this requirement, we're going to reduce that time down to 14 days. All right, going on to the next slide. Bonds, as I said, I kind of talked about it. They are going to be required based on the magnitudes, right? So if you go to the FAR and you look at bonding magnitudes, we are going to follow that. Knowing that, if there is something that is sensitive, low dollar amount that technically does not require a bond per the FAR, it is still in the case, right, to still require a bond if we do bonding by task order. But again, we're still trying to figure out whether we want to do a massive bond for a time period or individual bonds per task order. So the advantage, team, of doing one bond up front, right, though that it costs, is that we can initiate the notice to proceed faster. So the moment that we receive the proposals, we pick someone, we could just proceed forward with the project. If we do a bond per task order, then what becomes the hangup is we go through this process, we say who won, we're waiting for you to give us the bond, then I wait for my legal team to say that everything is good with the bond, and then we give the notice to proceed. So that's the behind the current with the government as far as what we are thinking, as far as what is the bigger advantage, the upfront cost of bonding and everything that goes with it, or do we deal with it as the projects, knowing that it will kind of delay the start of the projects? Next slide. All right. Yep. Time extensions can be requested, and then we'll send an amendment saying that it's approved. Next slide. All right. Request for time extensions. Yes. So a contract's a contract, right? So if we say that a project needs to be complete by a time, it needs to be complete by that time. But we're not going to have any kind of those issues. Next slide. Please follow environmental protections, right? In our solicitation, we're going to have all the rules and regulations that are out there. Fun fact, majority of all of our regulations, to include the Army regulations, even the way that we fight, is public knowledge. If you are interested in this requirement, please go ahead and look at those regulations. Also, go ahead and look at other solicitations in other areas to kind of get an idea of what are some of the new regulations and things that are being followed. Next slide. Quality assurance. So quality will be assured. Our core and our PW team will ensure that that's being done, right? So whatever reportables are due, labor checks, as I said, we will ask your personnel how much they're being paid. There will be unannounced inspections, final inspection, and so forth. Going on to the next slide. Yep. So government furnace equipment, we're not planning on doing it. If you deal with the federal government does not like to furnish equipment at all. But if we have to, we'll discuss it in our RTOP. All right. So what is our goals of this? We awarded the MATOC. What are we looking for? We're looking for there to be a partnership. All right. We're not trying to win one. We're not trying to reduce the cost and beat people out. No, The government, you all, we are one and the same. We want to ensure that the private sector, that all of our partners are doing financially well and you can continue to do work. So in order to do that, we want to ensure that there's good communication, that everything is clear, that everyone has an understanding. We want to be able to provide definitions and then any of our problems and ensure that everything is solved, right? We will work within the constraints that we're bracketed in. But again, with communication, any kind of issue that may pop up, we should be able to resolve. All right. So as I said there, we'll resolve problems. The government is open and honest. There's nothing that we're trying to gain. It is not my personal money. Technically, it's all of our money because it's the taxpayer dollar. All right. And then the lowest level being resolved, we do look at that, right? We don't want to go through any kind of documentation and escalate things. We just want to figure things out. If something was a misunderstanding, it was a misunderstanding. You will see in our RTOP process with the site survey and the amount of questions that you're allowed to have, we can figure things out. Next slide. All right. I'll let you guys read that next. Next slide. Questions?
Major Gatlin, there was a question in the chat. Do you require a full-time QA or safety on these jobs?
So that specification will be in the solicitation when that information does come out. I don't know it off the top of my head, so I don't want to give the false answer.
There's a follow-up question to that. Are you able to read it, or do you want me to read it out to you?
Marty, if you wouldn't mind reading it, that would be great.
Yeah, let me go ahead.
There. What if you submit a sources sought and you're selected, but in the process of awarding individual task orders, your company's bonding becomes stretch?
As far as that 1 million bond?
Would be my assumption, yeah.
Yeah, so as we get closer to what your bond would be, right? So this is a $25 million action. If we request a $1 million bond, we will keep track, and the expectation is you as a business owner to keep track. As we're getting closer, the expectation then would be to get another bond to increase the bonding of that. So again, one of those kind of things that as we continue this process, let us know those things. If it's too hard to do one singular bond because it will stress the process later on, okay. If individual bonds are better, okay. If they're worse, okay. I am not, unfortunately, a small business owner. I don't know all the different processes. So you all have to educate us, the government, on what is best business practices for you, right? In an honest way as we go forward. So this is not going to be the last time we interact, right? This right here, the phase we're in, is just seeing what capability is out there. Our next phase, right, is going to refine to ensure that what our need is well defined. And that is when we issue out RFIs, where you will be able to see a little bit of what we're thinking and provide additional feedback. I hope that answered the question.
Sounds like it. Thank you for that. Jeff Kent, you have questions. If you'd like to unmute and ask your question, that's fine. There you go.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you, Major Gatlin. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Hey, I was just typing them out, but I won't. Just some questions, because my first time through this at this company and following up on your presentation last week about being so detail oriented. So I'm going to be detail oriented on the sources sought. 3 quick questions. Do you also need a UEI number as opposed to the DUNS number, or do you just need the cage?
Those are one and the same.
What's that?
Those are one and the same now.
They're one and the same. Yeah. Okay, that's what I was clarifying too. Okay. So because we have a DUNS and a UEI, but we're just using the UEI now. So
I use the UEI and the cage code. Your UAI is how I determine whether you are a responsible organization, right?
Yep.
And then your cage code is what I use to tie your organization to the contract.
Excellent. Okay. I saw Dunn's in the sources sought, so just wanted to clarify that. Perfect. And then there's you identified only sections A through F, but there's another section that I think should be letter G, but it's lettered I in there. And it talks about for the requirements, have you done replacement, installation, and repair of the following? And have you done that in-house or a subcontract basis? Do you need that as well for the sources sought?
That will help us out. Yes, absolutely. But I would say, because we're getting close to time on that sources sought, it is better just to say that you're interested, and then really, again, that social economic terms. But yeah, letting us know that, hey, I've done this primarily. As we go into our next stage, as far as our acquisition strategy, like a little bit of how we change how we're going to solicit, or maybe when the evaluation factors may change as far as we wanting a primary.
Okay.
But I will say
And
at
then-
this, we're not
sorry.
anything like that. But the more info you give to us, the more that we're able to kind of, craft our strategy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, and likewise, thank you. Last one. If we have a capability statement that covers like 80% of this,
Yeah.
Do you prefer just more of a Word doc that goes A through G and then a capability statement attached to it, or refer to capability statement, or just does the format matter for sources sought for this stage? Or do you just want to make sure you have all that information? Or do you really want it in a like Word type A through G format?
Yeah, that's a great one. So I would, for the sources sought, it does not really matter. For simplicity, because you're going to have multiple people reading your capabilities brief, an easy way for someone just to be able to read would be my recommendation. But in this
Excellent.
phase, right, we're not asking for a proposal. So like, in our actual solicitation, we'll be like, hey, you have to limit this to 3 pages. Like a page is this by this with this type of font. Like you must follow that. On this sources sought, it is not like that. The behind the curtain type view is just people trying to, quickly get out of solicitation because we need this thing now. How can I quickly get information, interpret that information, and then go ahead and execute with that information? So if you make your capabilities brief or just your information something that anyone can easily see, it'll be great. The things we care about, again, is one, your NAICS, right? Like, are you registered? Can you do business with the government? Next, what's your social economic concern? Because we still have to figure out what way we're going to solicit that, right? And then have you done the work before? Like, cool, we have people registered. Cool, you're a social economic thing. But if you have zero experience in the past, right, that raises our level of concerns that private sector may not be able to get to our need. Now, with this being a general maintenance and minor repair, I think that risk is low. But at least putting that in there allows us to give us confidence that people do have these type of experiences going forward.
Outstanding. Great information. Thank you very much. And thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you,
That's
Jeff.
all. That's my questions. Thank you.
Major Gatlin, Fiona asked, is the goal to select 5 different vendors who all specialize in a different scope of construction?
No.
And then Tim asked, as a potential GC, does your subcontractors also, have to be designated as small disadvantaged business? Can you speak to subcontractor socioeconomic designations and whether they have to be certified, self-certified, or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to keep it broad because I too am still learning to deep dive into the whole subcontracting. So in our solicitation, we will tell you whether we have a requirement for what your subcontractors are supposed to be. Normally, that's geared towards large businesses. So if we were to make something full and open, and we allow large businesses to basically play ball, excuse my jargon, we would then say, all right, large business, you won, but you are required to have 10% of your services come from women-owned business. You require 12% of X, Y, and Z to come from, veteran type business. With this, hopefully us just going straight small business, right, as the main person who owns the contract, Our small business plan for you for the subcontractors may be far more limited than some of our larger ones.
Well, you
But
have clauses that talk about limits on subcontracting, i.e. how much they can subcontract out to other than small businesses.
we do, and it will be in the solicitation.
Read your solicitation over and over again.
Or in the RFI, right? We might send an
Or the
RFI
RFI.
further with the clauses and so forth, and you come back and be like, hey, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense.
Then I have one more in the chat, and then we'll go to Tori. Just so you know, the slides and the presentation, we don't have a hard time. It's got to go through approvals before we can release it back to you. Make sure that we if you haven't yet, please put your company information in the chat. That way we can ensure that all the participants are noted and that we can follow up with you to make sure that you receive the slide deck and the recording. I would assume by the end of the week, we could have that to you, but it's because of the checks and balances it has to go through, we may be delayed. So yeah, Tori, you had a question?
Yeah, I know when a lot of new people are signing up for Apex help, they haven't done any government contracting before. For this, would you, what's your general advice to somebody who might be applying to this who's never applied to a government contract before? No pressure.
No pressure. Well, I haven't done it before, right? I haven't personally created a small business to work with the government, but the things that I look at, right? One, do you make yourself available? So are you properly registered on all the websites? Are all your codes updated? Are you updated on Google? Are all the databases that people tell you to go register, are you registered for that, right? Step one. Step two, when all these informations come out, when we, the government, come to interact, please interact with us and then have a little bit of patience. So it may seem a little impersonal, right? So at this time, I'm very personal with everyone, very open. You send me an email, right, saying, hey, here's my response to your sources sought. I may not email you back that I received it. I tried to say, hey, received. But at that time, when you work with the government, it feels like this weird wall. It's okay. We are going through the process. Just be patient. All right. You're going to see more things coming out. All right. Again, we have to keep everything fair and reasonable. So you can't sweet talk us. That's not how it works. Right. And then when we ask you for something in the solicitation, just do what it says, right? If we tell you a certain template, use that template. If we say no more than 3 pages, don't go more than 3 pages. And ultimately, in the end, we are just people. So the easier you make this for us to consume the information and make sure all the check marks happen, perfect, right? That is better. You don't need to make anything overcomplicated. I have a criminal justice degree when I joined. So, right now, luckily, the Army paid for me to get a master's in system engineering. But earlier on, you'll see there's a lot of people. We all have degrees from a whole variety of different things. So we're not all subject matter experts on the things. Keep it simple. Keep it to the point. Do what we ask. And if there is something technical, you can expect us to say exactly what we want technically. And then from there, we'll have a subject matter expert that looks at that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're saying to follow the prompts and put it in the format that you want. And remember, you may not be speaking to someone in your industry.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, folks, we're coming up on the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for their participation. Really quickly, if you would like to just do a very quick, see your name, the company that you're representing, what your expertise is, and again, as Marnie mentioned, if you're willing to put that information in the chat, I think it's a great way for some of you to connect. Some of you are primes, some of you are subcontractors. If you'd like to say it, and a trick that I learned a long time ago is if you'd like to save the information that's been put in the chat, if you look at the bottom where it says chat, there's 3 dots towards the very bottom. If you click on it, it gives you the option to save the chat. So I say give a few moments, but I'm going to ask you if you're willing to introduce yourselves very quickly, just so we know who you are, your company, and your expertise. That would be great. I'm just going to call folks out and see if you'd like to introduce yourself. And if not, you don't have to. I see Harlan Smith to my very side of me. Would you like to introduce yourself, ma'am?
Yes, my name is Carolyn. I'm a small business owner, CEO of A&B General Contractor. I am looking to be like building homes and commercial buildings. I am very small and I'm starting small. So I do have like certification with SAM.gov with everything I need to get, like my resume and capable statement written down. And yes, I'm Alaska Native and
Okay.
I'm a small business woman owner.
Okay. No, thank you. If you'll put your contact, if you want someone to contact you and you want to put in the chat, you can. And I just want to go through quickly as we're coming up to the top of the hour, because I know people have to leave. Deborah, since you're still here.
Thank you. Deborah Matthews with Pacific Mark Construction. We're a general contracting firm specializing in tenant improvements, a lot of federal agency work. We're located in Clackamas, Oregon, and we're an 8A firm. Thank you.
Great. And I see PrimeCom.
Yes, ma'am. Just a general contractor, fully DBE, MBE certified. Pretty much everything in the general contracting that we can do construction wise.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, is I see Timo. I may be saying it wrong. My apologies.
Yeah, no problem. Tim O'Haver. I'm with O'Haver Global Solutions LLC and O'Haver Federal Construction JV as the managing venture, and we're a general contractor, 236, 220 SDB OSB, and just new to this too. Just got through SAM.gov and through the VA, designation process. And what else? What other hurdles have our company been over? I haven't signed up for the wide area workflow pay app yet, but I guess that's next. To some great information today, and thank you.
Absolutely. And again, thank you guys for hanging in with us. This was a lot of information, but the one thing I will say that Major Gatlin was very thorough in providing more than just the sources sought. It is due tomorrow. So again, a basic email will, ABCD will do. He's just looking for answers. This is the research part, but this is a very good exercise in the fact that whenever you see these, that's the type of information that they're needing so that they can keep it for small businesses. They need at least 2 businesses or more to respond so that they can leave it as a designation for a small business. And so that's why it's important to us. That's why we enjoy hosting these types of events, because we want to make sure that that money is set aside for small businesses like yours to potentially get this work. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us today. A lot of good information. Once we do get the approvals and things, we will respond to anybody who was registered and anybody who left their information in the chat. We will be sure to share the information back out, the recording and things of that nature, so that you do have it. This is good information to hold on to, not only for this opportunity, but any future that come up at JBLM that you might see. He really pulled back those curtains. So with all that said, thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. Let us know as counselors if there's something that we can do to assist you, whether it be getting registered on SAM.gov and some of the other things that are mentioned. That's what we do. That's why we're here. Thank you to my coworkers for hanging out here with today. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you, Tori. Again, thank you for joining us. Reach out to us directly if there's something else we can do for you. Have a great day.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.